Hey, look who's back. What I've gone through to get out of this balcony. Am I part of this first slide, the performance trap? Yes. You mouse put my name right by it. That's why I did so poorly on the test that was in the book. Okay, I had a desire to have this ready for Valentine's Day. Like a Valentine's Day gift to all of you, from my heart to your heart, because this stuff has so convicted me, directed me, clarified things. Some real set me free in certain areas. Other areas I will battle probably till I see Jesus, but at least I'm always aware of what the truth, here's the lie, here's the truth. Search for Significance was actually mailed to me in 1990 when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, in Stone Mountain by a friend. And I remember looking at it and it says, Search for Significance by Robert McGee. But underneath it talked about self-worth, and I said, oh my goodness, another book on self-image, self-help. No. So I kind of put it up, and we were going to go speak at a conference, Ken and I, and it was going to be a long drive, the kids were going to go. And I thought, maybe I'll look at the book and try to figure out why she sent it. Well, I start reading the book. I'm flabbergasted. I was in the second chapter and already thinking, oh my goodness, I have to, maybe I could teach some of this at this event. I mean, already was seeing things that should I add that to my material? I mean, I was just captivated. Anyways, that was 1990. Well, when I got done with the book, back in Stone Mountain. I took a little bit more time to finish it up, back in Stone Mountain, and I really said to the Lord, oh Lord, if it would be your will, if I ever get to move back to Florida, once I left Florida, I'm like, please let me go back. But anyways, if I could ever move back to Florida, I would love to teach this. I mean, I had a Monday Bible study, I had a single Sunday school class, I had another group I met with, and I said, Lord, we'll all go through this together, because I know all of us have bought these lies. The book covers 4 lies, and you think, why are you looking at a book about lies? Okay, let's back this up. This first session is going to be in 2 parts. First session, 2 parts. It's a session that needs 2 parts. The material is too much. It's called The Performance Trap. Caught me. Oh, there goes the AC. So grateful. Anyways, when people say, why are you working on this material? I'd say, because it's confronting lies. Like, why? Well, just think about how we got in this condition of outside the garden. It all began with a lie, but it began in a perfect context, perfect garden, perfect relationship with God, perfect husband and wife, miracle of miracles. And there was a lie presented, and it was bought. It was absorbed, it was believed. It was in Genesis 3, hath God really said, the liar said it to Eve, and she believed it. Well, that belief cost us actually our loss of significance, our value, our worth, because our sin, we have to leave the garden separated from them. What's interesting, these lies keep the loss going, and they're perpetuated by the same liar. John 8:44 calls Satan the father of lies. So when I'm reading these lies, I'm like, oh my goodness, half the Christians I know, we all believe this stuff. We're all trapped in this stuff. So, first lie. And there's 4 lies we're going to look at. And each one but one takes 2 weeks, so 2 sessions. This first lie, which is based on the performance trap, the lie is this: I must meet certain standards to feel good about myself. And you're like, what standards? Like, that's kind of abstract. I thought the same thing when I read, like, what standards? Like, what standards do I have to meet to feel good about myself? Well, what's interesting, when this came out, it was in the 90s. Social media was not around. That's not till 2004. Social media has taken this lie to a higher, the stratosphere. So many people are caught in this standard of all the posts, like, this is what Christmas morning should look like. This is what a wedding should look like. This is what you should look like at this age. This is your size. This way happy family looks. This way you look when you go camping. I'm like, really? That's the standard? I have to have that standard to feel good about myself? I have to accomplish that to feel good about myself? Now some of you are like, oh, I'm totally not into that. Awesome. There's a couple more lies coming, but this one, the performance trap, we need to spend a few minutes on it. These lies attack your self-worth, your value, and what's important about self-worth. As image bearers made in God's image, our self-worth. Listen to this quote. Self-worth determines whether you're happy or sad, excited or depressed, in love with life, or dreading another day. Oh, another day, I'm dreading it. And the sad thing about self-worth that's based on standards and people's opinions, well, we look to frail people, frail things for value rather than look to God, the creator, Elohim, as we learned in our balcony chats 2 years ago. It's unbelievable to think that my last balcony chat was 2021, November 3rd, and then I was going to, in 2022, do this series. Where did 2022 go? Hijacked. I feel like ripped in. I went to sleep a year later. I woke up. Whew, I got to get started. But we look to humans. We don't take God's opinion of us. We take the opinion of parents, spouse, friends, children. You know, what's sad is it's great to have parents that affirm you and cheer you on. And those of us who didn't have those, you know, that's great, that's fantastic. But our truest value is based on what God says about us. And a lot of people don't even know what God says about them because they don't spend enough time in God's Word, which I harped on for 56 balcony chats. And this is number 57, and you know I'm going to talk about being in the Bible. But what the Bible says about me versus what people think about me, often there's a gap. God says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Other people think she's too loud, she's too, you know, they have different opinions. God's like, I like her. As far as depending on someone else for your value, measuring up to standards that were set by somebody else, you measure up to Jesus' standards, not to, like, I always call them your own personal 10 commandments. People get 10 commandments from their family. They get their own 10 commandments from the church they grew up in. They get 10 commandments from social media, you know, all these standards. And if you don't measure up, you don't feel good about yourself. When we were doing this material, when it first came out, I remember I prayed, oh Lord, if I could just go back to West Palm, I'd teach all my friends, you know, I'd teach at this church and that church where I always taught all the time. And then 7 months later, I'm going back to West Palm. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'll get to share this. Little did I know 7 months later that I was not only going to be teaching this in local churches, but I was actually going to be teaching it, ready, brace yourself, at a spring training Bible study for professional athletes. And I thought, dare I go this material with them? Uh-oh, here comes a fighter pilot coming by in the back. Anyways, dare I bring this up? I wonder how they'd score on the test on the performance track. So the first night we took this test, this one guy that got really close to his one ball player, he was kind of close enough that when we finished the test, because I passed copies out to everyone, he was kind of looking at his score, and then I'm going to explain what the score means, and my score, he and I scored the same. And he goes, I can't tell if that's good or bad. I go, that's actually not a good score. And my first thought was, how is a man so competent, makes it to the major leagues, unbelievable, perfect in every way, looks, you know, ability on the field that leaves people going, what? I mean, he was amazing on so many, he even loves the Lord, beautiful wife, beautiful, you know, just got it all. And he scored really low. So it made me realize, once again, what is the standard that he has that determines his value? Not God's standards, but somebody gave him a standard that he's constantly striving to achieve, and he's coming up short. A couple of questions on the test. I just got to share a couple of them with you. Listen to this one. I worry. Now, most people say, oh, men never worry. Well, why do they have so many heart attacks if they don't worry? I have unexplained anxiety. Another name for anxiety is worry, but we'll keep those separate. I am a perfectionist. Oh, wait till we cover that part. I'm compelled to justify my mistakes. Well, see, if you're a perfectionist, you have to always explain mistakes because you're not allowed to make mistakes. So you have to kind of explain it away, blame someone, say what you weren't given enough information to do it right. I mean, you always have an answer. Because remember, you got to do it perfect, measure up, standards, 10 commandments, family commandments. Ugh. How about this one? I become angry with people when they interfere with my attempts to succeed and they make me look incompetent. There's so many people that are mad at people on the team they work with Because for a moment, they think that person not doing what I needed them to do is making me look bad. Because remember again, it's all about me, my standards, my word. Rather than stand there going, well, it didn't quite turn out as I hoped, but guess what? I still remember I am a child of the King, and I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. In fact, Ephesians 2:10, he calls me a masterpiece. And there's some of those, on days like this, sometimes people might doubt that statement about me. But anyways, so where are your standards? Who'd you get your standards from? This one ball player was telling me about, I mean, this is a good ball player, saying about, after every game his dad calls him. I thought, oh, how sweet, you get to hear from your father. Every game, after every game, he would call him, ready for this, brace yourself, and he critiqued the game. I saw when you missed this, I saw when you did this wrong. Oh, I would stand there with my mouth. I said, well, was he a professional ball player and he's kind of reliving his past and he's judging, he's critiquing you, thinking about his game? He goes, no, he never even played baseball. I went like this. Your dad calls and critiques you. He never even played baseball and he's critiquing you. One of his best baseball players, and I will not say position, I'm not going to give it away, but I remember standing there stunned going, okay, here it is. I must meet certain standards to feel good about myself. So it's daddy set the standards, grandma and grandpa set the standard, your husband sets the standards. Who's setting the standards in your life? Okay, I hope it's Jesus. He's very kind. Listen, when God told Moses he was going to reveal himself in Exodus 34:6 and 7, which ends up being quoted so many times in the Bible, I'd love to get a blank Bible and just underline every time that verse is quoted. But when he says he reveals himself, he says, my name is Yahweh, Yahweh, full of mercy and compassion, slow to anger. There's no mercy and compassion when it comes to measure up, reach the standard. There's only room for fear. Fear not measuring up. Fear not reaching the goal. Fear not achieving what you're supposed to achieve. Fear of man brings a snare. Proverbs 29:25. I saw someone hysterical one time. We're supposed to be doing prayer requests. I'm like, what is she so hysterical about? Well, she was on a committee. Someone didn't get part of it, the project, what they're going to present, done. So she had to present it to the pastor where it wasn't completely finished because she couldn't control that. And she was devastated that she disappointed him. I said, you were devastated because you disappointed him? Take a breath. Are you kidding? Take your pulse. Are you outside the garden? Disappointing people's normal. He's got to decide what he's going to do with the disappointment. You can't control what that other person did, but this person is weeping in our Bible study, completely disheveled. I thought somebody had been hit by a car. And it was all because she had to present something less than perfect. Once again, whose standard? Look at her. Who did that to her? Probably started at home. Fear of failure frames out people who constantly have to justify their mistakes because you're talking to someone who's terrified of failure. They even withdraw from taking risks because they can't bear the thought of failure. If I do that, I might fail. Okay, is failing fatal for you? Oh yes. Wow, that's why we need a savior. Whew. People who are caught up in this performance trap, like rules dominate every aspect of their life. Literally, they have rules for everything. Rules for how you load the dishwasher. Rules for how you fold a towel. I mean, they even have rules. Oh, there was a commercial where this guy is throwing pillows off his bed because he wanted to sit on his bed and watch a little TV for a minute. So he's throwing like 25 pillows off the bed, and all of a sudden his wife is yelling, "Did you throw any of them? Are you throwing them? Are you leaning on this one?" And you see him jump up. He had one he was leaning on, and I saw, oh my goodness, there's even commandments for what to do with pillows from the bed. And I thought, that person, that wife, is operating under this constant compulsion for her worth and a standard. I don't know who said it in her life, bless her heart, and that poor guy that has to live with that. It's interesting, in Galatians, the book of Galatians, I wrote a devotional years ago about the Galatian disease. Paul the Apostle came and brought the gospel to the Galatians, and he brought the gospel of grace. And then these Judaizers show up and going, oh, but you do this and this and this, and they're like, ooh, are we supposed to? Like bringing rules in, and like, oh, we have to do that if we're going to be really good Christians. And one of the comments, Paul said, who bewitched you? Like, who cast a spell on you? That if you don't do this, you don't have value. If you don't measure this line, you don't have value. If you don't reach this point, you don't have value. How sad. Okay. Of course, I've already run out of time. already knew that this was going to be too much material, doing too little of a spot. But let me just say something I want to mention, and I'll close with a biblical example. Paul the Apostle and Barnabas were chosen as the first mission team for the gospel. They go out, they're going to get ready to go, and Barnabas says, can we bring John Mark along to help us out? Paul's like, sure. Well, halfway through their trip, John Mark goes, peace out, brothers, I'm going home. This is too hard. So John Mark deserts them, and they go forward with the work. Excuse me, that's in Acts 13. The desertion part is Acts 13:13. Well, later on, Barnabas says they're going to go on another trip, and he said, hey, can we bring John Mark this time? And Paul goes, I don't want him on the team. He's a quitter. Not going to be on my team. So in the Bible, in Acts 15:26-44, it says, Paul and Barnabas had no small disagreement, which means they had a great fight. Two wonderful, amazing men of God had a big fight. And they fought over, I don't want to give him grace, Barnabas. Paul says, he quit. He's a quitter. He's out. Ironically, later on in Paul's life, he says, send for John Mark, for he is good for the ministry. So later on, he began to realize I was a little harsh on the guy. Once again, Paul the Apostle, Pharisee background, rule-keeping background, very choleric. Some of this makes sense. Measure up or you're off the team. Next time we meet, we're going to do the performance trap part 2. And we're going to look at some very famous, interesting people who have a set of 10 commandments that most of us could never measure up to. But, oh well, life outside a garden doesn't always permit it. Just know that God is crazy about you. And you may doubt it, but there have been times when I've been judged really harshly by people because I didn't measure up. And I just stand and think, God sent Jesus on the shopping spree, and he picked me and put me in his basket. And that I have never recovered from. So, next time, more of the performance trap. Then we're going to get into the approval addict. I know you're excited about that. God bless, and remember, search for significant. If you want your own copy, start reading it, filling in some of the gaps that you'll get, because I can't cover this whole thing in such a short amount of time. Okay, thanks for joining me. See you later.